In our pursuit of views and likes and ad revenue, we here in the YouTube review community sometimes go too far. We exaggerate, we embellish, we turn ourselves up to 11 because big personalities and strong opinions are what get you noticed and bring in new subscribers faster. But sometimes we lose sight of the work in the process. We lose sight of the people who might be hurt or insulted by those strong opinions, and we put integrity and honesty aside in the hopes that going to more extremes will equal more money. And when that happens, sometimes we make mistakes. We say things we don't mean, things we shouldn't have, things that are uncalled for, things that can be downright hurtful. I've always tried to be mindful of this and present the most fair, reasonable, unbiased content that I can, but just like everyone else, I'm not perfect. But I can admit when I've gone too far. And after some soul searching, I decided that I need to make an apology. Last week I crossed a line. I said something that was mean-spirited and unfair and cruel. And that's not me. That's not who I am. I'm not a bully. I'm not someone who tries to tear someone else or something else down for my own amusement or to build myself up. I made a mistake. I was wrong. And I have to own up to that. So, with that said, I want to issue a formal apology to Tommy Wiseau. In last week's review, I compared Batwoman to his film, The Room. Tommy Wiseau didn't deserve that, and The Room certainly didn't deserve that either. Putting The Room in the same class as the toxic waste of television that is Batwoman was stupid, ignorant, and in very poor taste. So to Mr. Wiseau, to The Room, and to the fans, from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry. Please know that I will take this as a learning experience and attempt to use it to better myself in the future. I only hope that in time I may be forgiven for my thoughtless, insensitive remark. Thank you, everyone, and good night. Okay, so, last week, the show featured Kate suffering from debilitating anxiety attacks brought on by PTSD, coming to terms with being a full-fledged murderer, and the ultimate desecration of Batman's legacy just to let Kate off the hook for all that stuff. Now, how do we follow this up in a way that will be appropriate, tasteful, and handle these issues with the care, nuance, and gravity that they need? If you guessed Kate goes clubbing, then I'm so sorry, because that means you've probably watched this show before, and that is time you cannot get back. No matter how badly you want it. Episode 18, If You Believe in Me, I'll Believe in You, begins at the docks where some shady thugs are selling human beings for their organs. Batwoman shows up and takes these guys out, though one of them gets away. But that's not enough to rain on Mary's parade because, hoo boy, is she in a good mood all of a sudden. She's waiting for Kate in Bruce's office with champagne because Kate shut down a human trafficking ring. It's time to celebrate, bitches! Yeah, so Mary's in on Kate's secret now after last week, and it says a lot about this plot development that Mary is the most annoying character in a scene which Kate also appears in. That is not an easy thing to pull off, and it gives me a very queasy feeling anticipating the cringe I'm sure we're going to be in for now. Mary's really happy, and she's super excited, and she thinks that Kate is the most awesome crime fighter ever. So that resentment that Mary previously felt about Kate not trusting her with her secret, yeah, that's not a thing anymore. So, only the second scene, and we've already done our first retcon of the episode. Mary has the suggestion that Kate electrify the batsuit to prevent criminals from taking the cowl off. That sounds like it would electrify Kate as well, but surprise, surprise, Luke thinks it's a good idea. Because now that we're done with the episode that was partially about him, this poor schmuck is right back to having no spine whatsoever. Mary's being so annoying that Kate finally kicks her out. She wants to be on the team, and Kate doesn't want her on the team, which is the right call, but not for the bullshit reasons Kate is going to give us later. Luke sticks up for Mary because the writers hate us, but Kate wants to turn her attention to finding Lucius Fox's journal that Tommy Elliot stole. Funny how she wants to do that now, but it's the furthest thing from her mind as soon as there's a chance that she might have sex tonight. Because Kate Kane is horrible. Cut to Sophie and Julia searching some warehouse full of Tommy's stuff, because if they can find that journal, they can implicate Tommy in the murder of Lucius Fox. And I really don't know why that's necessary, since everyone who was involved with that was either arrested or killed in the last 2 episodes, and Tommy is already locked up in Arkham anyway. But I guess these two needed a scene together so the writers could show them flirting, and also taking a pot shot at comic book readers for actually wanting female characters to look f***ing female. Because that's not going to piss off our target audience or anything. Note to the writers, gay women like looking at attractive women too. It's not just exclusive to straight men. So if those two are flirting, then I'm assuming Kate and Julia are not back together, even though they apparently f***ed in between episodes. Maybe Julia realized she can do better. Though if she's going after Sophie now, well, I guess she's technically trading up, but not by much. So when they don't find the journal, Kate pays Tommy a visit, but when acting arrogant and smug as hell to the dangerously unstable psychopath doesn't get her exactly what she wants, she figures, f*** it, let's go clubbing. I'm joking, but just barely. Kate and Luke bug the phones, and they intercept a call Tommy makes to a buddy of his in the mob who's been holding onto the journal for him, and since this guy is a club owner, Kate decides that it's time for a night on the town. We going clubbing, bitches! This is one episode following Kate having PTSD from literally murdering someone with her bare hands, and it's as if it never even happened. It's not even mentioned this week. Seems like the writers don't think it needs to be mentioned either, because apparently Kate is completely over it already. And this is nonsense, the likes of which could only take place in the Berlantiverse. PTSD doesn't just disappear like magic, but if it stayed with her for any real length of time, that would mean that Kate would have to deal with some kind of actual consequences for being a murderer, and God knows we can't have that now, can we? I'm not even a little surprised anymore. Cut to Arkham, where Tommy finds Alice waiting for him in his cell. I have no idea how she even knows about the journal, but she does, and she wants it. And since Mouse has been impersonating the doctor for a while now, and just had a conversation with top men regarding Tommy being mentally fit to stand trial, they've got something to bargain with. Now you might be wondering, if Mouse is impersonating the doctor, why has nobody on the Arkham staff noticed that Mouse has gone missing? Well, don't worry, because they don't bother to explain that. In fact, it never comes up at all. It's as if the writers put no thought into this whatsoever, which sadly is still giving them way more credit than they deserve. So Alice and Mouse are going to let Tommy out of Arkham if they get the journal, and they'll even implement the ass mask technology to give him a brand new face. And if you know anything about Tommy from the comics, you're probably getting a sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach right now. Tommy's intrigued, and tells them that in the journal are plans for a failsafe to deal with the Batsuit in case it ever fell into the wrong hands. So before you even ask, yes, this entire stupid MacGuffin plot is just a rehash of something they did earlier in the season. Of course, Alice is very interested in a weapon that can penetrate the Batsuit, and I guess we're all just forgetting about how Alice already had a Batsuit penetrating weapon in her hands not that many episodes ago and deliberately sabotaged the f***ing thing. And that's not even the stupidest part. The stupidest part is that Tommy tells them that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and Alice is surprised. Yeah. She's known all along that her sister was Batwoman, but is somehow surprised that her cousin is Batman. So she never wondered about where Kate got the Batsuit? Never wondered where Kate's fancy crime-fighting gear came from? It never occurred to her to connect the dots and think that maybe their cousin Bruce, one of the wealthiest men on the planet, would have all the money and resources and equipment necessary to do what Kate does, and maybe there's a reason for that? Of course it didn't. Because, as I just pointed out, the writers really don't bother thinking about these things at all. So Mary helps Kate get dressed and even has an outfit picked out for herself because she just kind of assumes that she's going on this mission too, because her irrational need for Kate's approval has inflated to downright psychotic levels. And Kate has to let her down like, sorry Mary, but you're way too straight for an op like this. No offense, but I'm going in there with a super gay lesbian or I'm not going in at all. Well, no, she didn't actually say that. But let's not kid ourselves, she was probably thinking it. So Kate and Julia get dressed up and hit the club. The mob guy's office is at the top of the building, so that's most likely where the journal is. And now you may be asking yourself, why the hell don't they just forego all this nightclub crap and have Batwoman enter the building through the roof? That would be a whole lot easier. I mean, she can get up there no problem, because she has Batman's grapple gun and the hang glider cape, which we know Kate knows how to use because we saw her use it in the fucking pilot. But no, we're not doing the smart thing. That noise. We're gonna do everything the hard way and make this all way more complicated than it needs to be, because one, all these characters are fucking idiots, and two, if they did the smart thing, then Kate couldn't get laid tonight. And if you honestly think I'm joking about that, then you must be new around here. The only thing on Kate's mind as they enter the club is her sex life. She gets jealous at Julia for texting with Sophie, and then the second they walk into this place, Kate bumps into Regan. If you don't remember who Regan is, I don't blame you. She's that bartender chick that Kate hooked up with around episode 4, I think. Yeah, you can see what an amazing impression she made, can't you? So they start flirting. Regan kisses Kate's ass about what a super amazing real estate mogul she is, because apparently Kate's been buying up lots of property and lowering the rent. And I say apparently because we've never seen her do any of that. It all happened off screen. This is the first we're even hearing about it. Also, I question how great of a real estate mogul Kate actually is, because lowering the rent on newly owned properties sounds like a real quick way to go out of business. But Kate's already loaded, so what the hell does she care about turning a profit? Anyway, they're talking about how much they miss each other and what a huge mistake it was to break up, and why is this a thing? They fooled around for like half an episode. I don't think we ever saw them on an actual date. They weren't even a couple long enough for me to remember this chick's name when she showed up. So finally, Luke has to get on the comms and remind Kate to put it back in her pants because she's got a job to do here that's kind of important. Speaking of which, while Kate was looking for some uglies to bump, Julia was busy staying on mission and doing what they actually came here to do. Julia kills the power, which allows Kate to suit up because she was carrying the Batsuit around in a backpack, you see. Totally inconspicuous in a fancy nightclub, I'm sure. And then she walks through the club as Batwoman, and nobody notices her, even though it's really not very dark. It's actually fairly well lit considering the house lights are off, and yet all the clubgoers are acting as if it's pitch black and they can't see her. It's absolutely laughable how stupid this is. I mean, look at this! Look at this! The exit signs are still on even though the power is out. You've got this human glow stick right here shining like a lighthouse in the noonday sun, and all these poor extras have to pretend that they can't see Batwoman. She's just walking around, and nobody sees her. It's not even that dark in there. You'd have to be blind to miss her, and they're all acting like Batwoman is f***ing invisible. But then, all of a sudden, things go south faster than Batwoman's ratings. Julia gets made, and when Kate finds the journal just sitting there on the mob guy's desk, she picks it up, triggering a booby trap that knocks her out cold. So last week, Kate shrugs off an explosion powerful enough to destroy a bank with not even a hair out of place, and this week, one little booby trap and she's unconscious. Because... yeah, so it turns out that Tommy knew Kate would come for the journal. I don't have a goddamn clue how he was able to communicate this to the mob guy without Kate realizing it when Kate was listening in on their conversation, but he did somehow, and they set a trap for her. Cut back to Arkham, where the crows have come for Tommy, in the middle of the night, presumably so he can stand trial for the murder of Lucius Fox, even though they haven't found the journal they need to implicate him yet, and they find Tommy hanged in his cell. This is, of course, not the real Tommy. It's a corpse wearing an ass mask of Tommy's face. And I don't know why the hell this fools anybody, because it's going to take a medical examiner all of 10 fucking seconds to realize exactly what happened here. And speak of the devil, we then cut to the real Tommy, who is getting his head wrapped up. Because while previously the skin to make the ass masks was taken from the ass of the victim, and that was stated in the show by the way, I guess we're retconning that too now, because to make this particular mask, Alice took the skin from Tommy's face instead. I don't know how the ass mask technology can possibly function the same way when the skin is taken from the face instead of the ass, but the episode never bothers to explain that either, so who gives a shit? Tommy wants his new face, but Alice won't give it to him until she has the journal. But that's going to be an issue because Tommy's mob buddy wants to hang on to it now because they needed something to pad the episode. So getting that journal is going to be a little tougher than they thought, but Alice ain't mad at it because she had a contingency plan just in case the mob guy screwed them over. Magpie. Yeah, remember Magpie? She resurfaced last week, and Alice just let her out in exchange for doing a little robbery. And the funny thing about this is that Magpie proceeds to make Kate look like a complete jackass because she infiltrates the building the smart way, the way Kate should have gone in but chose not to. She breaks in through the roof, bypassing the club altogether and steals the journal covertly. So yes, Team Batwoman just got clowned by the most cartoonish villain that's appeared on this shit show in 18 episodes. Tragic irony or poetic justice? You tell me. So Julia's tied to a chair being worked over by some guy. She won't answer his questions, but she does mention that she's British intelligence. But then some new chick walks in and has discovered that Julia was British intelligence, but went rogue 6 months ago. And she wants to know who Julia really is. So she's able to find out that Julia went rogue from the British government, information that would surely have been classified, but she can't figure out that Julia is publicly employed by the biggest security firm right here in Gotham. You want to explain that to me? No? Well, how about this one? Why the f*** did Jacob not know that Julia went rogue when he called her agency to recruit her for the Crows? Remember? Remember when that happened just last week? So they didn't tell him she went rogue? They didn't ask that he detain her immediately so they could arrest her? Does anything on this show make any goddamn sense at all? So since Luke is completely out of options and calling Sophie for help doesn't appear to be on the table, he calls Mary because he needs her to man the comms while he himself goes in to save Kate and Julia with no plan whatsoever. Mary still wants to go on the mission, and Luke thinks that's a terrible idea, but remember, he's only allowed to have something that resembles a spine in episodes where he affects the plot in some way, so hardly ever. And that's how we wind up with Mary, the most vacuous character on the show, infiltrating the club and facing down with mobsters, murderers, and human traffickers because someone on the writing staff genuinely thought that this would make the episode less stupid. That's how far down the rabbit hole we are. I can't imagine why this show is hemorrhaging viewers, I really can't. If only there were some clue. But as luck would have it, Mary has an in with the mob guy because his cousin is a former patient of hers at the illegal underground abortion clinic. So one very brief conversation with this chick, and just like that, Mary has successfully bullshitted her way into an auction held by Gotham's criminal underworld for the right to kill Batwoman. Yes, it really was that easy. And just for the record, even though these mob guys have had Batwoman tied up and helpless for at least an hour or two at this point, at no time did they think to take off her cowl and find out who she is. And it would have been so simple too. The cowl isn't attached to the suit at all. We've seen Kate just take it off like a Halloween mask, but none of them thought of this. None of them cared. None of them thought that Batwoman's true identity might be worth something. Anything. Good God, this show is stupid. And speaking of stupid, Mary just walks into the auction with a suitcase full of cash, makes the highest bid, and the mob guy just instantly accepts this without giving 1 second of thought to how this girl he's never seen before got in here, or how she knew the auction was even happening. You're the heir to Hamilton dynamic? Okay. That doesn't explain how you knew about this. Oh, and by the way, Mary, Telling these dangerous criminals exactly who you are? Not the smartest move. I know you hero worship Kate like it's going out of style, but you really should draw the line at taking crime-fighting tips from her. But Mary doesn't have all $10 million of her bid on her, so she doesn't get Batwoman. The mob guy will give her the bat suit because he doesn't see how a suit that makes the wearer virtually unkillable is valuable at all, but they'll be stripping that suit off a dead body in a minute. So the guy who's going to be finishing Kate off is that human trafficker who escaped her in the opening scene. But before he can put Kate out of the audience's misery, Luke blows the bomb he put in the case, and this creates a distraction long enough for Mary to free Batwoman. And while this is happening, Julia uses the distraction to turn the tables on her captors and defeat them while tied to a chair, in a sequence they totally didn't rip off from that Black Widow scene in the first Avengers movie. Pfft. And then she kills them. Because she's secretly evil, I guess? Oh, who cares? So Batwoman effortlessly defeats the entire room full of mobsters, and I'll give it to them, the fights in this episode are actually pretty decent. They do more of those long one-take shots, which tend to come off pretty well because they swap out Ruby Rose for a stunt person, which you can always tell because they barely show Batwoman's face when they do this. One of the mobsters shoots Batwoman with a grapple gun, but she matrixes under it in slow motion, which the show seemed to think was really cool but just looked downright silly. She takes him out too, and that's all she wrote. Every man is down, the women stand tall, girls rule, boys drool. The end. Over at Arkham, Jacob goes to see Alice, so we can give Rachel Scarston more screen time in a last-ditch effort to have at least one good scene in this episode. And once again, she delivers because Rachel Scarston is a far better actress than this show deserves. Jacob's talking to her because he's suspicious about Tommy hanging himself. Not suspicious enough to take 5 seconds to make sure Tommy's corpse is actually Tommy's corpse, mind you. And I'm only guessing here because they never talk about it, but apparently the medical examiner didn't find anything unusual about the body at all. Didn't find anything strange covering his face, for example, even though they're all well aware that Alice's surrogate brother Mouse steals people's faces, and for some reason that wasn't the first thing they checked for on general principles, because if it was, then the episode wouldn't have a plot. Oh my god, this fucking show! So Alice begs Jacob to help her. She tries to guilt him by telling him about the inhumane shock treatments the doctors put them through, but she's wasting her time. She already told Kate about all the sick shit the doctors like to do in this place, and not only did Kate still lock her up in there immediately afterward, but Kate didn't even bother telling the authorities about all the inhumane crap. Our quote-unquote heroes are all horrible people, so if Alice is hoping that Jacob might, do the right thing in this situation, well, she's gonna have to hope a lot harder. And Jacob is sorry it had to come to this, but not sorry enough to take Alice out of Arkham or tell the cops about all the medical malpractice going on. All the supposed good guys seem to be perfectly fine with that because he has to protect the daughters he has left. Daughters plural. That had to stick in Alice's craw just a little bit. And she says that what she has in store for him will be so much worse than cages, or electrodes, or insanity. My guess, she's gonna make him watch episodes of this show on a continuous loop. He'll be begging for shock treatment in a matter of minutes. God bless Rachel Scarston. Despite the horrible writing, she's still able to make this scene work. If we could somehow clone her and cast her in every role on this show, it could only improve things. Cut to Magpie on the roof, where she was getting in and out of the building like Kate should have, but didn't because she's an idiot. Batwoman confronts her, they fight for a minute, Magpie's losing, so she throws the journal off the roof. Batwoman dives after it and returns with it seconds later. And Magpie used this opportunity to escape, but it's only been a couple seconds. She couldn't have gotten more than like 30 yards away at most. Hell, she's probably still on the roof right now. And not only does Kate not chase after her, she doesn't even look for her. Because, hey, I got what I wanted, so f*** it. So yeah, one of the very, very few criminals that we can say Kate actually did apprehend since this show began, she just let escape. I guess Kate decided that she wanted more red on her ledger, right? I mean, if we're copying Black Widow now, we might as well copy that too. So Kate switches back into her civvies and goes back downstairs to give Mary 18 episodes worth of backlogged emotional validation in one scene. And get this, Kate says that the only reason she didn't want Mary on the mission is because she already lost one sister and the thought of losing another was just unbearable. Off! Try as you might, writers, you cannot retcon 18 episodes worth of continuity no matter how much we'd all love for it to happen. When has this ever been the kind of relationship Kate and Mary have? You can probably count the number of times that Kate hasn't been irritated by Mary's mere presence on one hand. Very, very rarely has Kate ever had time for Mary unless she needed her for something. At best, she treated Mary with impatience and indifference 95% of the time. But now, all of a sudden, they have this super close relationship and Kate couldn't stand the thought of losing her? Kiss my ass! And then Kate gives Mary a job as an associate at her real estate firm. Because, Mary's not busy at all with medical school and running her illegal clinic every day and night. No, she has plenty of free time to take a second job. And if I know this show, she won't need a license for that one either. So Mary runs off to write Kate's name in little hearts all over her diary, and then Regan shows up. And because Kate is stupider than even I thought possible, she tells Regan pretty much exactly why she came to the club that night. She needed to get back something the mob guys stole from Wayne Enterprises, and Batwoman helped her. And then they go to Kate's place to because that was way more important than tracking down Magpie or actually securing the journal Kate, Julia, and Mary just risked their lives for. And so you can forget about Sophie and Julia, and whatever feelings you thought Kate was supposed to have for both of them, because Kate just wants to get laid. Twilight was a better romance than this shit. Although, as asinine as it is, it instantly comes back to bite her, because when Kate wakes up the next morning, showing off her bare backside because someone in the writer's room thought Ruby Rose with her 12-year-old boy body has actual sex appeal, she doesn't. She discovers that Regan has ditched her, and she stole the journal. Because as valuable as that thing was, Kate couldn't even be bothered to take this journal, which contains all the super secret, sensitive, incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands information about how to kill the person wearing the batsuit, and put it someplace safe, because getting her rocks off was way more important. And this show has been renewed for a second season. Because that's just what we do at the CW. We encourage incompetence and reward failure. Then Luke shows Mary around the Batcave. She tries to take a selfie, and he actually has to explain to her why Instagramming the fucking Batcave would be a bad thing to do. God, can't this fucking episode just end already? And then Luke accidentally spills the beans that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and Mary is shocked. Because the entrance to the Batcave being in Bruce's office was not enough to clue her in. For God's sake, there isn't enough brain matter between these characters to fill a petri dish! And then Regan gives the journal to Magpie because, shocker, they're sisters who have been working together the whole time. And if you believe for 1 second that this was in either of their character bios prior to this episode, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you. So Julia flirts more with Sophie, then gets a phone call from some mysterious person she's working for who also wants the journal. Alice removes the tracker that I guess was implanted in Magpie's neck when she was committed to Arkham. She takes off, and I'm sure none of the Arkham staff will even notice that she's gone, just like they don't notice that Mouse is gone, just like they don't notice that Alice suddenly has free run of the place for some reason, because the entire staff is blind, deaf, and dumb. And the episode ends with Mouse getting pissed off, because even though they have the journal, Lucius wrote the whole thing in code. Womp womp. Well, this episode sucked. The whole thing was a goddamn joke. And I'm convinced that this was by design. After all the darkness and drama of the last few episodes, I think the writers just wanted to put all that in the rear view, move on, and make people forget about it as quickly as possible. And thus we have this episode where they're like, let's have some fun, let's do some partying, let's get Kate laid, let's have a cool lighthearted caper, let's get Mary in on the fun and hand out Yas Queen sleighs like Halloween candy. That's just what we need right now. And I'll say this. It was somewhat less agonizing than last week, but not because the show had gotten any better. It was only because last week was such a catastrophic new low that there was literally nowhere to go but up. This episode didn't feel like insufferable Batwoman stupid. It was just run-of-the-mill CW stupid. The problem is, run-of-the-mill CW stupid is still pretty fucking bad. And unfortunately, you writers are still not seeing the real issue here. Your title character is a murderer. And she's not a character like, say, the Punisher, where that goes with the territory because it's just who he is. Or like with Arrow, where it was a part of his arc that he started as a killer and gradually became something better. You expect this from characters like that. But a character who wears the mantle of the Bat is supposed to stand for something. And what you've proven with Kate murdering Cartwright and then the show jumping through every hoop imaginable to let her off the hook for that as quickly and easily as possible without her doing a goddamn thing to redeem herself is that Kate doesn't stand for anything. Just one episode removed from that story and she's already over it. No anxiety attacks, no self-reflection, her PTSD is completely gone, her being a murderer doesn't even get a mention. It's in the past, water under the bridge, Kate's moved on from it, and just like that, it's back to business as usual. But even though retcons are your favorite storytelling device, this isn't something you can just wash away, as much as you clearly want to. And when you try to do that like you did here, all you're accomplishing is proving beyond a shadow of a doubt how despicable this character and this show really are. Because you keep trying to take the easy way out. You wanted to go to a dark place, but you didn't want to do the work to get out of it, and now you're stuck. And what you're left with is a story that has plot holes big enough to drive a truck through. You're constantly retconning major plot points and character beats right and left so nothing and no one feel like they genuinely matter, and the characters are acting so f***ing stupid they make Team Flash look like geniuses by comparison. Trying to retcon your past mistakes instead of fixing them is not the answer. Absolving Kate of any wrongdoing by dragging Bruce down to her level is not the answer. Stealing Batman's rogues gallery and passing it off as your own is not the answer. But I'm sure that won't stop you from trying, like next episode when you'll undoubtedly turn Hush into a f***ing joke. But how long do you think you can keep going like that? Your ratings are circling the drain. Even at a time when everyone is stuck inside looking for something to take their minds off all the problems in the world, you still can't get them to tune in. Don't you think that might be a sign that what you're doing isn't working? Or do you just not care about that either? Whatever. It's no skin off my back that this show is a colossal failure. But hey, by all means, keep going. And enjoy your second season that I'm sure the CW has buyer's remorse about right now. Because it's gonna be f***ing hysterical to sit here and watch Batwoman burn itself to the ground. And you know what? It couldn't happen to a more deserving bunch of people. This show. If you enjoyed this Batwoman review, I've reviewed every episode, so check out the playlist on the channel. Ding that bell icon and follow me on Twitter using the link in the description so you'll always be notified about new videos. Please help me out against the YouTube algorithm by liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. Always make sure you're still subscribed because YouTube is randomly unsubscribing people all the time just to mess with them, and I'll be back with more very soon. Until then, stay safe, wash your hands, and I'll see you next time.